Hi, everybody. Good morning. This is Craig from the University of Applied Research and Development, and it is our privilege to have Omar Bourne with us, who works for a PR firm in New York City. Good morning, Omar.
Good morning, Dr. Hansen. Thank you for having me.
Oh, look, it's really exciting. We actually haven't had someone who works in media and PR, has experience in emergency management, and been involved in deployments. And I'm really excited to learn from your experiences.
I'm excited to be here. There's a great intersect between uh, emergency management and PR and communications that people may not realize. And yes, we have public information officers, but what does that mean? And how can you get your message out there as an emergency management specialist? And, I've lived it. And so I'm happy to be able to have this discussion with you and your viewers.
Thank you, Omar. Why don't you give everyone a little bit of background about your history in PR and emergency management? And if appropriate, I can show a couple of those pictures that you sent me.
Yeah, not a problem. So I actually started my career in a newsroom here in New York City at one of the local TV stations broadcast, and it was a great experience. I That was my first job out of college. I worked there for 7 years on the assignment desk, and I work with deploying the crews, getting the information from sources like myself when I became one. And that was a great experience. And then I transitioned after that over into emergency management as deputy press secretary and then press secretary for the emergency management agency here in New York City. And, that was a great experience. And being able to work in media and broadcast, gave me the experience and the exposure that I need to really apply those skills in the emergency management field.
Now, you've sent me a couple of pictures of different situations that you've been involved in,
Mhm.
and you've talked to me about trust and the importance of trust between the community and news organizations, and
Mhm.
particularly communication in blue sky times when things are not tough, things are
Yeah,
not difficult, when the weather is good,
yeah,
building the trust. Why do you think that's important, and how have you seen that beneficial?
yeah. I mean, trust is important within every aspect of life. I liken it to a relationship. When you're getting to know someone, you have to build up that trust first before you can really uh, create the foundation for that relationship. And it's the
Mm.
same for emergency management and communication. And so, in blue sky times, when there isn't an emergency, what are we doing to ensure that we are building trust with the community, because there is that interset and the connection and the relationship that needs to be built. And so from my experience in working with emergency management, building the relationship for the response is a day-to-day process. So what does that mean? You should be working with your community on a daily basis, whether that is using social media to engage your audience. Whether it is actually going out into the community and having drives and having, we had something in emergency management called mobile office hours, where during the summertime, we would go out into the community. We'd team up sometimes with the fire department, the police department, the health department, different agencies, and we would go out into the community, hand out literature, and different information, and provide activities for individuals so that they knew who we were. So that when it came to the emergency, they can say, hey, we're familiar with the emergency management agency. We're familiar with the officials because they've been to the community, they've worked with us. And that goes across not only the community, that goes across working with your elected officials as well. We invited them to those events as well, so that they could participate and you could really build the bond, because they are then going to be your ambassadors to connect with your community when there is an emergency.
That's brilliant. I love that you encourage that going out and physically meeting in person and building those relationships. You
Yeah.
mentioned to me about the joint information system. Tell us
Mhm.
about that for those of us who don't know.
So New York City is a complex place, right? And we have a number of different agencies, 40 plus agencies here that deal with a number of different emergencies. Obviously, you have your fire department, you have your police department, you have the Department of Buildings that deal with building structures, you know, Department for Social Services that deals with older adults, etc. And so when there is an emergency, sometimes this would intersect with these agencies. So you're looking now at a multi-agency response, which means that you have to make sure that everybody, first of all, knows who is going to be responding to the emergency. But not only that, but they understand each other's role. And then when you are communicating to the public and disseminating information to the media and to the public at large, you want to make sure that you have a unified response. And so the Joint Information System, I like to say, is a system that can be put in place for an emergency and prior to an emergency, so that everybody is, you know, marching to the same drum beat. Now, there's a system and there's a center. So in emergency management, everybody knows about the Joint Information Center, which is the physical location where people go, you know, if there is a major emergency. But what happens if there is a serious emergency where you may not need everyone in a physical location for a long period of time, but you still need that joint communication? And I like to say that that's where the Joint Information System comes into place. For example, when we would respond to a heat emergency, you know, we're looking at bringing in emergency management. You're looking at bringing in the health department. Heat emergencies often tend to affect older adults, those who are, you know, older or may have underlying health conditions. So you want to make sure that you're bringing in Department of Social Services as well. And you know, so how do you then bring all of those people together to make sure that you are communicating each person's message to the public? And so that's important. And that could be as simple as an email chain where you loop in all of the relevant PIOs, public information officers, communications experts, et cetera, to have the discussion so that you can plan, you know, your response to the emergency.
Omar, I wanted to ask, because you're an expert in communication, do you think that the agencies, the departments, you've got a joint information system and a center and working together, is there a consistency in the language that's used to communicate to the public about events that emphasizes the importance or the danger? Just, I'm thinking of, because of climate change and the extreme weather events, how maybe a heat wave means I might go to the beach, versus a heat wave means I need to get inside and I need to protect the elderly. And, you know, it's a more of a life-threatening event. So does the language convey the importance, and is it consistent across departments and teams?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. You know, and that's what you strive for. And that's where even practicing comes in, where prior to an emergency, you know, you're having a functional exercise, or you're having a full-scale exercise where now you're bringing all the players together so that you can discuss the language, discuss what needs to be included in your message ahead of the season. And, you know, we are very good at, you know, making sure that we bring everyone together on a consistent basis so that we, as I said, are marching to the same drum beat, so that when there is the emergency, the gray sky, you know, we're firing away on all cylinders. We have the language already in place. And obviously, if you have to tweak, you tweak, but everybody knows who's the player and who's supposed to be at the table for the response.
Right. I just want to share a screen, and why don't you tell us about this picture? Amazing picture.
Yeah, so this was our deployment during Hurricane Florence back in 2018 in North Carolina. And our urban search and rescue team, New York Task Force 1, which is made up of fire department and police department special units. And they are managed by New York City Emergency Management. We went down to North Carolina. We were deployed by FEMA, to help in the community to rescue those who needed to be rescued. And my first deployment as a PIO, public information officer, and I went down with the team really to be able to share their experiences and the great work that they were doing in the communities with, not only local New York City media that went down, but with the national media at hand. And this was one of the first deployments that we did for that day while we were there. And this person, was trapped in their house. They obviously needed crutches to move around. And our team went out and they rescued that person. And I was there to snap the photo and take some video when they was able to complete the rescue. And for me, usually press people aren't on scene right away or live in the action, especially in a hurricane. And so for me, it just spoke to the heroics of these men and women who go out to save people that they don't know. But that's what this work is about. It's about helping people that you don't know. And their heroics, to be able to share that and to capture that, to document it and then share it with other people just speaks to not only these men and women and what they do to sacrifice to save others, but it speaks to the story that can be told and the importance of sharing that story with other people.
So how about this one?
Yeah, and the president at the time, President Trump, his communications team retweeted and gave us a thank you to the team for their heroics that that they were doing. And again, to share those stories live in action and to be able to just see the work, it's amazing. And those men and women, they're heroes. They're the real heroes. And I'm just happy that despite the situation, obviously, because it is a serious situation, but I'm happy that I was able to at least share the good news of the work that they were doing.
It's always nice when someone senior, and particularly the most senior person in the country, celebrates and acknowledges the hard work of people, the sacrifice of people, the willingness to just turn up and to save lives when things are tough, when, like everybody, they deserve to be safe, they deserve to be home with their families, and yet through their active service and their commitment to their fellow man and fellow woman, they actually turn up, get the job done and save lives. It must be incredibly gratifying for you to be working with real life heroes.
Oh, indeed. And they were happy to have me there, and I think they understood then the importance of having someone there who can not only field and coordinate those requests, because the requests obviously from the media were coming in rapidly, so it's good to have someone there who could coordinate that and give real-time updates. And I think that's the important part of it, right? Is that you're able to give real-time updates to let people know, what is going on, but also what resources might be needed.
I'm wondering about working with the different departments, communication, pretty high energy, high capacity people. What are the ongoing challenges that someone working in the media and communications might find working with people in different departments like that? And how do you navigate those challenges when you're working with them?
communicate. I can't stress that enough. Over communicate, trust but verify, confirm. You want to make sure that everyone is on the same page, because there are going to be multiple interests that each agency may have. Each agency is going to have an individual interest, but at the end of the day, you're coming together for one common cause. And so for us, where we are kind of coordinating everyone and the different pieces, for me it was always just making sure everybody's on the same page, communicating consistently, constantly, with everyone, and then asking questions. And so I always like transparency. I always like to make sure that when I am looping in one agency, that the other agency is involved. We're all in it together, and we're a team. And you stress that at the end of the day, we're a team. We're going to communicate, and we're going to work together to get the job done. It's fun. It was fun.
What do you think up to this point is one of the most memorable experiences that you've been involved in?
I would say it had to be in the deployment to North Carolina. The pictures that we just showed, because again, usually, PIOs don't usually deploy with a task force team. And so to be able to have that experience, and to document it firsthand in real time, I mean, it was memorable. You can't even fathom having an experience like that. And I felt comfortable. I felt safe.
Right.
And they made sure that I was safe. They said, "Hey, you can't go past this line. You can't do that." And even back home, my bosses were calling, "Hey, how are you? Are you okay?" But it was just a memorable experience, and one like no other.
So for people, just as we wrap up, Omar, and this has been really interesting, and I think some people would be getting excited about the opportunities to work in media, being a public information officer, working for the city. What would you suggest to an aspiring public information officer, particularly in emergency management? What would you say are some things that people should build into their toolkit, some understanding, some experiences, some skill sets to prepare themselves for that type of role?
Yeah. Obviously, I would say you have to be a media junkie and understand how media works, right? I
Right.
think what helped me was the fact that I worked directly in media prior to going over into the PIO role at emergency management. Now, obviously, everybody is not going to have that experience, but then the question is, how do you, once you get there, formulate those relationships with the media? And that comes with time. It comes with engagement. It comes with understanding what media professionals are going to want, and how best to be accommodating to them. Because again, in public informations or PR, however you want to state it, you're going to be working with the media, right? It's a symbiotic relationship, I like to say. And so how is it going to benefit everyone? And that means going above and beyond and being accommodating, but also understanding the difference between a response in blue sky times and a response when there is an actual emergency, right? Because when there is an emergency, now things they're ramping up. And so the approach to blue sky times are going to be different than the approach to an emergency as it's occurring. And so you need to understand the difference between the two, and understand how you are going to respond and react. My biggest thing that I always like to implement was preparation. And for example, there are emergencies that you can prepare for, and then there are emergencies that you're not gonna be able to prepare for. But as best and as much as possible, prepare. I knew that when the winter season was coming up, or if the summer was coming up for heat emergencies, there's certain protocols that needed to be in place to to ensure that you are ready for a response, right? And then obviously with an unplanned emergency, I should say, like a building collapse, you know, that's different because you just got to get up and go. But there's still some preparation that you can have. And that is, well, who are going to be the key players? I know for a building collapse, I'm going to have my buildings department. I'm going to have my fire department, emergency management, and whomever else that may be involved. So it's a matter of just always trying to think and anticipate the next emergency or what the response for the emergency is going to be. But then more importantly, and this just speaks to something that anyone can do, how are you connecting with the community? And I don't want to go back, and I want to bring it first full circle, right? Because during an emergency, what you have to realize is that people are going to be hurting, right? Because they've lost either possessions or, God forbid, they may have lost a family member. So how can you be empathetic to that person and understand the needs? And then in a PIO role, how do you communicate those needs, right? And that's where communications comes in, because it's going to be so important, because people are going to be searching for answers or searching for information that's going to help them recover. And so you want to make sure that when you're thinking about crafting the language, that, you know, it has empathy and it has sympathy in it, and it has the information that it needs, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to count. I remember we deployed to Puerto Rico after the earthquakes in 2020. I went down with my commissioner at the time, and, you know, she didn't speak Spanish. I didn't speak Spanish. We went out, we visited this lady, Spanish speaker, but my commissioner, who's now female administrator, she was empathetic. You know, she put her arm around the lady. She was there, and she showed that empathy, and that lady was thankful. And you know, we had a translator, but she just expressed her thanks for our commissioner showing up and being there and showing empathy and letting her know that everything is going to be okay and that help is on the way and help is there. And so I think when we're looking at our plans, whether it's in communications or if you're a planner in emergency management who's making a certain plan for a community, at the end of the day, what are we doing to be empathetic and to show people that we care? And that is what's going to count.
That's brilliant. So I just want to summarize that. So being a media junkie, building the language of empathy to connect with community, being accommodating, understanding that there are different responses between blue sky and when an emergency happens, and preparedness, being ready for the different types of emergencies that you know of, but understanding that the unknown may come or must come. And so being ready for that, or prepared even inside ourselves for that. I think that's really great advice. Omar Bourne, I really want to thank you for your time being here with us today.
I thank you for having me. Invite me back anytime. This was great. A lot more we can talk about. I know we only had half an hour, so appreciate you, Dr. Hansen, and looking forward to more discussions.
Thank you. Omar, please don't go anywhere when we wrap up the show. But for everyone watching and for our students watching the recordings as well, and for those emergency managers who might have been sent the recording, as emergency managers know, when you're constantly in your career, you're doing training, you're doing development. If you're like most emergency managers, you have a big folder full of certificates and trainings that you've done through FEMA and other local agencies as well. But maybe that hasn't translated into an academic degree, and you'd like to get your bachelor or your master's degree. So reach out to us at uard.ac.nz or uard.org to make sure that we can give you credit and recognition of prior learning so that you can gain your academic degree faster from anywhere in the world, anywhere, anytime. So again, Omar, thank you for being with us, and thank you very much for your time and for helping communities in the way that you do.